Good evening, everyone. I want to call to order the regular council meeting for Monday, September 14th. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcements for this evening. Last month, we kicked off our 2021 budget discussion. The City Council will adopt its maximum tax levy for 2021 this evening. A budget workshop to discuss the city's enterprise funds is scheduled for October 26th at 5 p.m. And a budget workshop to discuss the city's capital funds and 5-year capital improvement plan is scheduled for November 9th at 5 p.m. The city's Truth in Taxation hearing is scheduled for December 14th at 5:30, and Council will consider adopting the city's 2021 budget and 5-year CIP after that hearing has been held. Budget workshops and meetings are held at City Hall and the Council chambers. The public is invited to attend and provide input. Residents may also submit feedback on the budget via email to the city clerk or city manager. Additionally, there's a City Council workshop scheduled for September 28th to discuss fire department response times and the Minnesota Fire Code Appendix adoption. Council will also have a policy discussion on setting speed limits on local streets. A council workshop is also scheduled for October 26th at 5 p.m. where Council will discuss a long-term plan, utility undergrounding, in addition to its budget discussion on enterprise funds. All meetings of the City Council take place in City Hall and the Council chambers unless otherwise noted, and the public is invited to attend. Due to COVID-19, city facilities are now open, but we are temporarily limiting room capacity to ensure social distancing. Additionally, all visitors to City Hall are required to wear masks per the Governor's executive order. While we look forward to seeing everyone at our meetings, we encourage anyone wanting to attend the City Council meeting or workshop in person to register in advance with our city clerk. Next is the open forum. First order of business on the open forum is a proclamation we have tonight, which I will read to you from the dais. It's a Proclamation 2020-05 to recognize September 13th through 19th, 2020 as Direct Support Professional Recognition Week. Whereas Mount Olivet Rolling Acres, a Victoria-based long-term support facility, hires over 450 staff, including direct support professionals through its 30 community homes, and whereas DSPs are the primary providers of community-based long-term support services for tens of thousands of individuals with disabilities in Minnesota, and whereas DSPs are valued for their work in building respectful and trusted relationships with individuals to assist them in their most intimate needs, and whereas DSPs provide essential support to individuals with disabilities to stay connected to family, friends, co-workers, and the community, helping them to define and live a quality life. And whereas DSPs provide a broad range of individualized supports, including meal preparation, medical assistance, personal care and life skills training, mobility, work, and life enrichment opportunities, and other daily tasks. And whereas DSPs support informed choices and person-centered practices that honor and respect the individuals with disabilities they serve. And whereas during the COVID-19 outbreak, DSPs have played an instrumental role in ensuring safety and maintaining dedicated support and care for those they serve. And whereas an adequate workforce of high-quality DSPs is necessary for the people of Minnesota to respond to the needs of people with disabilities and minimize more costly settings such as hospital or institutions. And whereas DSPs are one of the fastest growing positions in Minnesota and demand for their skills is great, and yet low wages and demographic trends are creating a growing shortage of DSPs, leading to increased turnover. And whereas public officials are key advocates in building awareness and addressing the issues facing this publicly funded workforce. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Pro Tem Deb McMillan of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim September 13th through the 19th, 2020 as Direct Support Professional Recognition Week. Our next order of business is to adopt, is there any other things for open forum? Seeing none, I'll move to the next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, is there a motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt the final agenda.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now moving on to our consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Second? Any items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items required by law. Consent items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Would staff like to pull any consent items?
None from staff.
Council, are there any items you would like to pull?
No.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
We already did.
We did.
Oh, the consent. We did the regular agenda. Did we do the consent?
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, all is in favor. We're moving on.
All in favor, though, you have to do that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
By saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Next is the regular agenda for each item. On the regular agenda, 6.1, to adopt the preliminary 2021 tax levy and general fund budget. And I am looking at Tricia to help us out here this evening. Thank you, Tricia. Please proceed.
Good evening, Council. This evening, we are taking a look at the preliminary 2021 levy and general fund budget. So we've had the last 3 months, we've had workshops, we've presented some ideas, you've made some decisions, and we have come up with a max tax levy to present tonight. We're still going to be addressing the interfund and CIP at future workshops, and in December we will approve those budgets and then also the general fund levy. So at the last budget workshop on August 24th, staff proposed a tax levy increase of 6.95% over the 2020 tax levy, and the tax capacity rate would increase 0.62 compared to 2020. And during that workshop, Council made the following changes. The WECAB agreement was increased by $2,500 just for the 2021 budget. And also it was decided to increase the levy to fund the Green Crest sidewalk for $110,000, with knowing that we will work to try and find other funding sources other than the increase in the levy, but to have it in there for max tax. This resulted in an 8.81% increase to the levy over 2020, and the tax capacity rate would increase 1.22%. So looking at the general fund budget, the 2021 preliminary max tax levy includes revenues of $6,450,000. Our expenditures came in at about $4.8 million, and our transfers at $1.565. There's also a $23,955 contribution to the fund balance to reach our 30% minimum for the for our minimum fund balance for next year's expenses. The property tax levy results in the general fund levy at 5.290, and the debt service levy of $1,125,000. That includes the Marsh Lake Road and the City Hall refunding bonds. And it also shows the elimination of the $188,000 EDA levy, which was the original bonds for the city hall. So we took away the 188 and we added, I think it was like 79,000 for the new refunding of the new bonds, and it was about 139,000 for the Marsh Lake Road. The tax impact, the net tax capacity went up 5.1% over 2020. The tax capacity rate, as I mentioned, would be 1.22% increase. The median valued home went up 0.5% in value, and the tax on the medium value home would be a 4.2% increase, so that would be a $60 change in tax. We estimate a year-end population of a 3% increase based on number of new homes, and our tax per capita would be $575.90. Our long-term financial plan, looking ahead 7 years out, we estimate the tax capacity rate to be anywhere between 31% and 34.7%. We have a 30% general fund unassigned fund balance maintained. We're showing household increases from 3,646 households in 2020 to 4,323 households in 2028, and our population increase of 24.5%. So our next workshop will be discussing, as you mentioned earlier, we have the enterprise fund budgets and the CIP. Staff recommends the approval of the resolutions for the preliminary tax levy for collection in 2021 and to adopt the preliminary 2021 general fund budget. Does anybody have any questions? Council, questions? Comments?
Couple. Just regarding our enterprise funds, were we going to include the water assessment charges? Or was that put off until 2021?
That was put off.
Dana?
Okay.
Thank you, Acting Madam Mayor, Councilmember Gregory, members of the council. The direction that I understood was that we would do some community engagement and have some public open houses and meetings to gather feedback and put information out there, because we want to spend time, not have it feel rushed, and make sure that people understand what's coming and how it will impact them. And so the rollout, we would do that in 21 for implementation of the recommended plan in 2022. So that would give you additional time if you wanted to look at making different modifications. As part of our rate study, instead of getting a paper report, we got a paper report, but we also got a financial modeling tool. So if council, through the feedback and public engagement pieces, if you wanted to see what something would look like if we tweaked one piece of that formula, we have the ability to do that through our tool, and we would do that as a result of whatever feedback that you got from that public engagement process.
Okay, thank you. And then next question was, at our workshop at our last meeting, we had a fairly long discussion, and kind of right at the end we threw in the 110,000 for Greencrest, which I voted against adding that to the budget, but I get it, it's in there now, and we can always look for ways to reduce that, and I certainly hope we do, in order to get our tax capacity rate flat. So I think we can find that 110,000. And one question I had, in wondering if we can get a consent. I think we still have a $40,000 legal fee contingent fund that we've never tapped. We went through all those legal fees discussions, and we never tapped that fund. We found money in the budget. So I would propose we reduce that, we get rid of that $40,000 contingency fund to help pay for that 110 would be the first step for that green press.
Is it 40 or 60?
I thought it was 60.
Maybe it's 60.
It's 60.
Yeah,
Okay, well then we're halfway there if we do that.
yeah, okay.
Well, I think looking at the future, since we can't predict the future, being prudent with this preliminary tax rate is the right thing to do, because in 3 months, we don't know for sure what we're gonna know about 2021 that we don't know now.
And I said I don't disagree that it's in there now, but I hope in the final approval, we reduce that tax capacity rate to flat. That's my hopes. When the time. I think everybody's hoping for that. So we need to find money, and I think that would be a good place to start. Go ahead.
Dana?
Thank you, council. So a couple things. Staff's recommendation, and we're happy to entertain other ideas as well, but staff's recommendation for funding the Green Cross sidewalk will remain what it was on August 24th, which is funding it through your trail fund. We do have sufficient funding to be able to do that and complete Bavaria Trail if we start that Bavaria Trail project later in the year, so a fall start. And that is because the DNR is giving us until June of 2022 to utilize those funds and expend those funds. And so we feel like if weather cooperates and the stars align, we'll be able to finish that project by the end of the year. If we, who knows what weather will do, that would be the goal, but we could bleed over on the Bavaria piece into spring. Now that assumes that a future council is going to not adjust the general fund transfer, which is a planned transfer and part of your financial plan for 2022. But we would be able to do that, and that would be the staff's recommendation. So not increasing the levy. So we talk about finding the money. We believe that it's there. It's in the fund balance, and that would be staff's recommendation. I believe, and Tricia can correct me if I'm wrong, for the contingency fund for legal fees, I believe that is $60,000. Councilmember Gregory is correct. We have not utilized that amount since we set that aside as a risk management tool. I will note, though, that we intend to likely tap into a small piece of that to fix a driveway issue from a previous road project that was done, that council's already given direction on. We just haven't expended or finalized that portion with the resident yet, but that is coming. And so we intend to utilize that fund. So our recommendation would be not to completely deplete that, because we will have things hanging out there. It's a good risk management tool. What's the right number? You all get to decide that, but I would recommend that we leave at least something in there for those purposes.
Yeah, because we didn't know, I don't think we were sure about the grant when we kind of made that extra just in case decision. And now we know that we are able to utilize that. So even though it's in there, I think we are going to be able to do that sidewalk without having to.
And it makes good sense to talk about that legal fund. What does the right amount feel like, and how does adjusting that number impact what the levy looks like? So interested in your thoughts, council, around what that proper number looks like.
Do we have a deductible?
I'm sure we do have our insurance.
So we do have a deductible through our insurance, but some of the things that we're talking about relate to settlements. So it will be what you're agreeing to pay out for certain issues.
I don't think we should make the cupboard bare. We can't really predict the future, so having a small reserve for contingencies is a really good idea. Whether it should be 60 is another matter, but to get rid of it, I think is not prudent. And there should be others besides, the 60 isn't the only one. I think there's a few others. If you looked at the schedule that was in the last presentation.
But we also have a pretty large balance in our revenue stabilization fund, which, I mean, it's kind of a rainy day fund for special
I don't think so.
needs.
If we had the legal definition of this revenue stabilization fund, there, you have to really, if we ever have to use it, we have to be very careful how we use it. Not for rainy days, but for specific reasons, because we said it's revenue stabilization. Am I, Counselor, am I right about that, or am I overstepping?
I'm looking for an education on that. It'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I guess I without having studied up on that, I'd be a little hesitant to try and give you the details on the purpose for that fund, but I think staff certainly could get back to you on that. But as I sit here now, I don't have a lot of clarification to provide to you. I apologize.
I could be happy to shed a little bit of insight on that. So my understanding is that you've developed a policy that really outlines what you're going to utilize the revenue stabilization funds for. Not this past session, but the session prior to that, there was a lot of discussion at the legislative level about how funds, and we build our revenue stabilization funds based on, those are funds coming from building permits. So we're not going to say that they're excess funds, because that's not what they are. But every year, as you know, we plan for a certain number of homes to be built. And with that comes a budget number. And so it's anybody's guess. We can throw the dart at the wall and say it's going to be 80 homes, 100 homes, 200 homes. And so, for example, the last few years we've done 111 homes. So any revenue that exceeds what would come from the 111 homes goes into your revenue stabilization fund, up to, I think, 2 million.
Yeah, it's 4 years.
Oh, yeah, 4 years worth of operating revenue. And so then you have a policy that says you're using it to support these types of, it's building related. Building related is what your policy is pretty specific. Now, with the legislative spotlight going back a couple sessions ago, other communities that have had similar funds and similar policies have utilized those funds to build things like city halls or do different projects. And so the Builders Association has shed some light on that and said, hey, wait a minute, are you over collecting? What does that look like? And so there's been some scrutiny on how cities are utilizing those funds. So because we have a really good policy with very specific uses that tie to the building activity or the building type activity, we've not been part of that spotlight. Staff's recommendation when we talked about this briefly last year, coming into the 2020 budget, our recommendation was to make some modifications. You probably recall making some modifications to your policy to strengthen that language and strengthen the tie there. So there would be a risk. It's your policy. You can certainly make changes to that policy, but if you deviate too greatly from that direct connection, you'll be at risk now, at some sort of risk for further scrutiny on how those funds are being expended and whether that fund is can be expended in that way.
So one of the things that we had talked about, if I can remind council, is we build about 125 homes a year on average over the last 5 years, and we only budget for 110. So the revenue from those additional homes is what funds that revenue stabilization fund. I think I have suggested, and I think we've kind of agreed, that we should maybe tighten up our revenue estimate on those homes. If for some reason we budget for 110 and we only build 90, then we can use that revenue stabilization fund
Exactly.
for that purpose. But I think there is room to tighten that estimate up and maybe not put so much money into that not put so much money into that fund every year, and then utilize that in case we do end up with a short estimate on that. The other thing that I will say is our fund balance and our financial practices lead us to our AAA bond rating, which we talk about, we're very proud of, and we're very protective of that. And I think council is very aware of the fact that we want to maintain that AAA bond rating, and we should take that into consideration while we think about it.
I agree. Good point.
Other thoughts?
I'm ready for a vote.
All good.
Perfect. Councilmember Vogt, will you make us a motion?
Okay, I'll go back to the motion. I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary tax levy for the city of Victoria for collection in 2021 as presented tonight.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are,
That next one too, I think that there's two.
General fund budget.
Are you gonna speak on that or
No, that was included. There's two resolutions, the levy that Councilmember Vogt just made a motion for, and then there's a resolution approving the preliminary 2021 budget for the general fund.
so we do need another motion for that, all right? Can I have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve a resolution approving the preliminary 2021 budget for the general fund.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to the roundtable. Roundtable is a means for council members to gain input from fellow members on items they would like staff to explore. Does any member of council have a roundtable item this evening?
No.
And we're moving on to reports. Mr. Vos, do you have a report for us?
No report. None.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Bose, did you say?
Okay, Councilmember Vos.
Sorry, I don't have my hearing aids in. Can't do it.
Councilmember Vos does not have a report.
I just thought I mentioned that I did go to the farmer's market on Thursday and talked to a number of the vendors, and 3 of them told me this was their favorite market, and they are very excited to be here and certainly plan to be back next year when it's bigger and better even. So it's going well.
Councilmember Black. Terrific. Councilor Vos.
Yes, Councilor Vos adopts by reference Councilmember Vogt's report. So I've got the same nothing to report. So
Anything from staff?
Staff would just like to point out that we have new artwork in rotation. So our portraits were up for about 4 months, I believe. So now we're back on track, now that things are starting to slowly reopen in the broader community. But I'd just like to point out these are all not from one artist, but multiple artists, and they are watercolor artists. Some of these watercolor arts look like photographs. They're pretty incredible. So artwork can be viewed anytime City Hall's open. And so we encourage people to come on out, check out the artwork. It also, people can purchase the artwork and support local artists in the community, which is a great thing. We have a lot of local Carver County watercolor on the walls right now. So different barns and scenes that a lot of people might recognize when they're walking through. So I'd just like to thank Deb Zeller. She's a Victoria resident and also owner and operator of the Zeller Art Studio, which is located in Hopkins. And through our partnership with her, we've been able to rotate the art. So this art will be up here through the end of November, and then we'll say goodbye to 2020 and hello to 2021 with another art rotation come December, January.
Yes. Residents, please take a field trip. Come on down and look at these beautiful pieces of art. They're spectacular. With that, if there's no further business for this council tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.